Greetings, everyone. This is myself, Meten, and Dorje, and we're here today doing the Mars retrograde. We had planned to do a whole vid for 2025, but we're going to do that a little later in the year, around December. And so for today, we're going to go into the Mars retrograde, also talk about the Jupiter retrograding into Saturn square in late December, as well as the beginning of next year. And I think we'll just start. Dorje, you want to start us in on that?
Yeah, hey everybody, good to see you and welcome to another fascinating, inquisitive, educational, and delightful episode of Marduk's Musings. I'm going to share my screen here and pull up the sharing is not turned on. As soon as Mario gives me permission, I'm going to share my screen
One thing I forgot
and pull up some of the charts that have just been really poignant over the last week. Two major events have happened as Mars has stationed retrograde, as you probably are aware of if you are paying attention, which is one of the major events that happened was at the fall of the Assad government in Syria, which has been around for 50 years, happened dramatically and swiftly with Mars stationing and then Mars going retrograde so that the entire country changed hands in the period of just a week, 2 weeks, excuse me. Then the next major event was there was the of a United Healthcare executive by allegedly named Luigi and during the Mars retrograde. And one thing I'd like to note is that the Mars retrograde, which you should be able to see here and now, and then this chart is set for Portland. It's a little bit where you set it, doesn't so much matter. Mars is retrograde for everyone in the world, but you'll notice that Mars retrograded at 6 degrees Leo. And Leo represents the king, it represents the head, it represents the executive, and that's tying a lot of themes that we have seen so far. So then the executive of United Healthcare, which is an insurance company that's known for denying 38% of claims that are claimed on it, which is an incredibly high number of claims, was killed in cold blood. I believe it was last Friday or last Thursday in the streets by this man named Luigi, it turns out. And so Leo, executive, king, violence, getting retribution, that's all just there in the symbology. Also, you'll notice that the Mars retrograded opposed Pluto in Aquarius. And really interesting there because last time Pluto was in Aquarius was 1778 to 1798. And during that time, it was the time of the American Revolution, the time of the French Revolution, and a lot of executives, a lot of the ruling class were killed. It was a time of great social upheaval, and there was this humanist movement towards giving power towards the people. And so it's interesting to me that as Mars retrogrades opposing Pluto, we immediately get violence that disposes authority, totalitarian leadership figures, and gives power to the people. I imagine this is going to be a theme of Pluto and Aquarius for the next 20 years, as it was from 1778 to 1798. Before I launch into Luigi's charts, do you have any thoughts on that, Mario?
No, nothing to add. I agree with that, with Mars being a power to the people kind of energy. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Pluto in Aquarius, a power to the people kind of energy over the course of the 20 years. First, I'm going to pull up here Astro Gold here. I'm going to pull up Luigi's chart. And I just want to show this. This is the assassin, the accused assassin, the alleged assassin. And, already online, if you go to X or if you go to Blue Sky or if you go to Facebook, there's already tons of what may be information, what may be disinformation, depends on what side of the entertainment fence you're sitting on, claiming that this guy's just a fall guy. And then there's all kinds of different ways of associating with that. And he may be, I don't know. Again, this stuff is out of the hands of someone like me to actually know what's true or not. But I would say from his chart, I think he actually did it. One thing that's really amazing here is his sun in Taurus. Now, remember, Taurus is earthy, it's peaceful, it's also beautiful. Taurus people tend to be beautiful, and there's a lot of love for this guy online. There's a lot of women and a lot of men who are saying how handsome and how beautiful he is, and how they would, quote unquote, they would. I don't know. I wouldn't, but that's just my persuasion. But a lot of people are saying they would because the guy was very handsome. He was bricked out, but his son in Taurus is exactly opposite Chiron in Scorpio. And Chiron is the healer, representing healthcare industry, and Scorpio is death. And so his sun is conjunct Mars, opposed the healer, and assassinates Scorpio, the sign of the assassin. He assassinates this executive on the day that Mars goes retrograde. Absolutely
on his
amazing.
ascendant. Yeah.
So we do not know the time of his birth. I should put that out. This is an untimed chart. We do not know the time of his birth. That may come out. That will probably come out when some astrological researcher goes and inquisits in a way that gets it from a family member or from the state of New Jersey. But currently, this is an untimed chart. So I just have it set 12 p.m.
Still, we got Uranus squaring the sun and Mars.
Yes, Uranus squaring the sun and Mars, and that is someone who's going to have violent reactions at times. And not only that, but it's square from Aquarius. So where are these violent reactions coming from? They're coming from his ideology. And not only that, but the Pluto is conjunct his Neptune. And what is Neptune? Neptune is, as much as it can be, about spirituality and your spiritual path and transcendence. It's also about delusion. And so he's got this Plutonic Aquarian ideal that if he goes and kills this guy, it's going to start a revolution. There's these papers he's written about how the people need to rise up against capitalist corporate society.
Does he have writings? Oh my God.
He does. He has tons of writings. Well, not only that, Mario, but you're going to love this. He has this review of Ted Kaczynski's The Unabomber's book on Amazon. And he's just talking about what a genius Ted Kaczynski is. This Amazon review that he wrote 4 or 5 years ago.
Perfect, man. That's too perfect.
This guy's chart is just completely on top of it for what you would want to see for a radicalized lone assassin who writes a manifesto and tries to change society by killing some poor guy who was he was just doing his job. You can get into a lot of ethical debate about whether being the executive of an insurance company that denies a lot of claims is a good guy or not. But this guy had a family, he had a house, he went to church. Maybe he didn't go to church, I don't know, but he took care of his family. He was living his life. And along comes this radicalized young man, Luigi, who goes and shoots him in cold blood because of his own radical ideas, represented by Uranus square Sun, Mars square Chiron.
We also got North Node in Virgo.
Yeah, we have North Node in Virgo. Right. So, and representing wanting to move health forward, right?
Yeah, right.
On some level, wanting to move health forward. And that Sun and that Mars taking practical action to do that. So if we're going to talk about the Mars retrograde in Leo, that Mars retrograde in Leo, again, opposing his Neptune. He was, I guarantee you the guy's mentally not in a good state now. And again, whether he did it or not, we will never know down here through all of these filters where the media reaches us. I'm going to say he probably did it. I'm going to say he got mentally possessed and totally did it. What do you think?
It's the same difference as I see it. It's fascinating how this kind of whatever this stage is that we live in, so whatever kind of reel that they're spinning, it's fascinating that whether it's a patsy or someone real, it's so hard to determine with a hindsight without time passing. To me, it always looks like, irregardless, it fits perfectly. Whether this guy did it or not, his chart reflects someone who would do it. It's just how it's been. It's how I've always
it tells the story. Yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Whether he's an actor or not, the stage is set, is perfect. Everyone's wearing the right wear for what they're doing. And the stars are compelling them through with the right string or not.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because that really, to me, gets deep to how I feel astrology is super functional. Mythologically, you take it back to the myths of the Greek gods, which had planetary association. And it was like, well, the gods are pulling the strings, making humans do things. And that's that exact same idea told in a modern way, that these planets are pulling the strings and they're making humans do things. And it's a stage. And so you don't really know which human's doing what in the role, because we only know our own lives. We only know what we
Right.
get up, who we talk to, where we drive, where we eat, where we sleep. And the rest is kind of this miasmic, phantasmical display. But the gods are pulling strings and they're making things happen. And another thing that's super fascinating is when this happens, he has Chiron, again, the medical industry, conjunct Mercury, his natal Mercury. So transiting Chiron is conjunct his natal Mercury. And so he's sending a message to the medical industry. And he has this wound. He has 10 or 12 screws in his back, and there's photos online now of this back surgery that got botched, which may or may not be why he decided to target a United Healthcare insurance person. But he has a wound. He has a Chiron wound. And from that wound, he is propelled to deliver a message to the health industry, for better or worse. Anyways, that's part of the Mars retrograde story. Again, Mars a retrograde in Leo, the killing of executive. Now, an executive is not a king, but an executive is certainly a feudal lord at this point in time.
No, nothing to add. I agree with that, with Mars being a power to the people kind of energy. Go ahead.
Yes.
I don't know. In some ways, I look at Pluto and Aquarius as a contrast to that. And then it's interesting that we will be dealing again with the Pluto-Mars opposition to begin 2025.
Yeah, fascinating. Yep, that's true. So we can expect more of the same, I imagine. I imagine we will get another bout of king, president, executive being summarily executed.
And then we'll also be having the Jupiter square Saturn again hitting December 24th, I think it is. And that's just another reminder for us to keep things in balance and to not get caught up in extremes, and to just keep pushing forward with whatever we're doing, regardless of how things are, or the moment, regardless of the momentum of things, because things will lose momentum. And I think crypto just took a dive recently, and I'm sure there's people crying about it, but it's just part of it. That's just part of the thing. That's just part of reality, the up and down. No, nothing to add. I agree with that, with Mars being a power to the people kind of energy. Go ahead.
And so we do have Jupiter retrograding right now towards Saturn. And you're right, they're going to conjunct on December 24th. As they conjunct on December 24th, Saturn is coming from, Saturn is going to be direct. It's going to have the power in the situation because it's direct. Jupiter being retrograde is weakened. It does not have the same power or dignity. So there's going to be a little contraction. There's going to be a little scarcity, a little bit of a financial contraction. I think we're already seeing this with the president-elect Donald Trump and his boss, Elon Musk, are already talking about taxes and slashing social services and slashing government in order to enrich oligarchs and industrialists and businessmen. And that's very much, to me, Saturn square Jupiter in Gemini. I wouldn't be surprised if crypto takes a breather from now until Jupiter goes direct. And then it's quite possible that when Jupiter squares Saturn again, which I believe is late April, early June, maybe early May, maybe late May, I wouldn't be surprised if at that point in time we don't see Bitcoin in one way or another being institutionalized into American governance, which I know is something that they're talking about, but I think that it's possible that that would be May, June, that they're going to move really quick on that. Because that to me would represent Jupiter squaring Saturn for the final time in direct motion. Jupiter's like, we're making a concrete institutional, that's square to Saturn, a relationship here. But that's just fanciful theory on my.
What's the date on your Jupiter? Advice. What's your date on the Jupiter going direct? I didn't write it out here.
So let's shift this to weeks here. For those of you watching, this is a free course on how to use Astro Gold. And I'm going to move back weeks and and I'm going to move forward weeks because we're going forward in time. And as I go forward in weeks, we hit Jupiter going direct around the 11 degrees Gemini around the week of February. So then we'll switch to days. Again, this is a free course on how to use Astro Gold. If you're watching, if you want to, you can send me money through Venmo, Dorje-Kirsten at Venmo for this free course on how to use Astro Gold. Here you can see on February 4th, exactly, then Jupiter goes direct. And so I'd imagine that this is when crypto start taking off again. Makes sense that it would have a breather. Bitcoin having hit 100K, that's a major psychological resistance point. Makes sense it would have a breather. But XRP, Ethereum, I hear is maybe a good one to get back into because
Ethereum has yet, and Solana's already back up where it was before. It's a little too late to get into that. Okay. Let's not turn this into crypto. Let me nuance my perspective on that. I would agree we're definitely taking a breather. Things have gone straight up for a while now, but it looks like for sure that February will be a month that will be back in action, if not already in January, if not already in late December. But definitely in March, we have that in retrograde coming, along with Mercury retrograde and the eclipses. That looks like a rough time. And in the rest of the year, we're looking at retrogrades for 2025. But we'll get more into that in our next broadcast in late December, where we'll do a huge, longer kind of special in 2025. No, nothing to add. I agree with that, with Mars being a power to the people kind of energy. Go ahead. One more thing to add, I forgot. That was right on with what you said. You were talking about Trump and his boss creating, I would say this. You were saying something about they're minimizing expenses, government expenses, and
yeah, that's our intention. Yeah.
So Pluto's going to go into gate 41 on January 30th. Now, this is really interesting because it's about limited resources. So this could very well be, he'll be inaugurated around maybe a week before that. No, nothing to add. I agree with that, with Mars being a power to the people kind of energy. Go ahead.
Yes.
I don't know. In some ways, I look at Pluto and Aquarius as a contrast to that. And then it's interesting that we will be dealing again with the Pluto-Mars opposition to begin 2025.
Yeah, fascinating. Yep, that's true. So we can expect more of the same, I imagine. I imagine we will get another bout of king, president, executive being summarily executed.
And then we'll also be having the Jupiter square Saturn again hitting December 24th, I think it is. And that's just another reminder for us to keep things in balance and to not get caught up in extremes and to just keep pushing forward with whatever we're doing, regardless of how things are, or the moment, regardless of the momentum of things, because things will lose momentum. And I think crypto just took a dive recently, and I'm sure there's people crying about it, but it's just part of it. That's just part of the thing. That's just part of reality, the up and down.
Yeah, that's our intention. Yeah.
So Pluto's going to go into gate 41 on January 30th. Now, this is really interesting because it's about limited resources. So this could very well be, he'll be inaugurated around maybe a week before that.
Hey, if you're listening and you're a fan of ours, and I know there's thousands of you out there, if not millions, send us some questions. If you guys want us to cover something on the 2020, on the year ahead, put it in the comments, send us questions, DM us, whatever. But let's get to, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. I have a lot of thoughts on the Saturn errors. If we have time, Mario, there's one more thing I wanted to cover.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I want to cover the fall of Syria because this is also another fall's a wrong word, the transformation of Syria. Although I have reason to believe that it might be a fall, but for right now, we're going to call it the transformation. I have astrological reasons it might be a fall, and I'll get into that maybe some future episode. But I'm going to look here at the recent charts, and we're going to go here to the Libra ingress in Syria. And what you're going to notice here at the Libra ingress in Syria is that ascendant is for the ingress. is at 3 degrees Aquarius. And if you read the works of Al-Kindi, or if you read the works of Abu Mashar, or if you read the works of Bonatti, these are old guys. These are guys who were born long before us. So how relevant are they to our lives? How relevant are they to get up, to feel good or do not feel good? I don't know. But they were really good at predicting the fates of armies and nations. And one of the things that they said that you do is that you look at the Aries Ingress chart for the fate of a nation, but you also look at the equinox and the solstice charts, and that can tell you what's going to happen to a nation. Now, if you take the Libra Ingress for Syria, this doesn't look bad for Syria, right? And the leader of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he currently last week he had his second Saturn return. He's in his current Saturn return. And that Saturn return, if you're a king and you have a Saturn return, maybe some trouble's going to come up with your nation. He's lost all power. He's now an exile in Russia. And what we find that's so fascinating is if we go back 1 week to when Syria fell, we have during that time Saturn station retrogrades and Mars station retrogrades. As it stations retrogrades, it opposes the ascendant of Syria. This Mars is ruling from the Libra Ingress chart, the ruler, right? At the same time, Pluto is conjunct the ascendant of Syria for the Libra Ingress chart. So we have a complete transformation of who's in power that opposes the ruler. And then the ruler occupies the seventh state, the seventh house, which is the opposite. It's the opposite of the people, because the people's always the ascendant. So then the ruler is disposed by this Mars-Pluto opposition, striking the Libra Ingress chart, while the ruler himself is having his Saturn return literally to the week. Literally of the week of his Saturn return, he's disposed from power and sent into exile. And that also is symbolic of the Mars stationing retrograde in Leo, the disposing of a king, the disposing of an autocrat, the disposing of a ruler. So we get both of these as part of this Mars station retrograde in Leo story. And the thing about Mars station retrograde, which I think people, oh yeah, retrograde, every single planet retrogrades between every kind of, it's fairly often for Mercury. I forget what it is, sometime around every 90 to 100 days for Mercury, 80 to 100 days. I forget the exact thing. But then when you get to all the other planets, they're retrograding at least once a year. Mars only retrogrades every 780 days. So when you have a Mars retrograde, it's going to be more impactful. It's going to be more noticeable. It's going to stay retrograde for 3 months. It's going to be more impactful and noticeable, if not on a personal level. I know a lot of people who've been going through stuff, but people are always going through stuff. But it's going to be more impactful on a mundane national level. There is a lot of visible news in the world that is very descriptive of that Mars retrograde whenever that happens. And I think that's part of the beauty and eloquence of astrology, is that you just know you're going to see events that are really about the story of that Mars retrograde unfolding. Do you have any insights or thoughts on this chart, Mario? Hey, if you're listening and you're a fan of ours, and I know there's thousands of you out there, if not millions, send us some questions. If you guys want us to cover something on the 2020, on the year ahead, put it in the comments, send us questions, DM us, whatever. But let's get to, because I have a lot of thoughts on that.
And obviously Pluto hitting the ascendant and the people and the country, and just total annihilation. I was going to bring up, I don't think we have time for it, but 2 days ago, Israel took over Mount Hermon. And this is fascinating. I could talk for hours on this one. This is like a revival, reanimation of the past here or something. When they take over these old hotspots of magic, it's the whole story of what's going on. This goes back to Iraq and the plunging of the museums. This is for another video, but it's just fascinating stuff. And
so what is the historical significance of Mount Hermon?
Well, Hermon is significant in relationship to the archons. So in Gnostic writings, it's very significant to where significant events happen there related to the archons, to the fallen angels. And it being taken over is historical. It's a repeat of the past. There's been attempts in the past to have control over these areas. And this has been the same with all over Babylon. So we know Iraq, Syria, all over the Middle East. These are hotbeds for magic and of the past. And
Right. Yeah. Yep.
so I don't want to say too much more. There's so much to unload there. So much
Well,
packed.
that does bring up something for me, which I'm going to try to get here. So I'm opening up Syria's chart of independence. And this is why I said I think Syria is in trouble, because this is Syria's independence chart. You'll notice that the Mars retrograde basically happened on the North Node. Karmic event here, karmic event
Interesting.
for moving the country of Syria forward. It had to move forward. It had to move forward under new leadership. But the challenge for me with this is that if we go here, and I really think that this chart becomes very pivotal in using for national charts, is that what you have is you have the solar arc directed sun moving into the seventh house in Aries. To me, this is a tragedy. You had it moving out of the last 50 years. It was in Aquarius and then Jupiter. Moving into Aries, this is going to be a time where it's going to be, in my mind, controlled by foreign military power, probably Turkey, and perhaps the southwestern part by Israel. I don't see this as a time for 30 years, if not 60 years, when Syria is under its own autonomy. And right now, it looks like it's under its own autonomy. There's a warlord. I get his name, but he seems to be pretty clever at negotiating things, and he's trying to pull together all the various factions that are fighting and creating an independent state. But at the same time, you have Israel, which is just bombed the crap out of, just basically destroyed all of Syria's military capabilities over the last 2 days and taken over large swaths of the southwestern property of Syria because they could. And then you have Turkey influencing it. To me, this is a tragedy of this, is I just don't see how Syria becomes a state that is caring for its people and growing them in their own education and abundance and wealth and prosperity for the next, at least for the next 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, great hit there. Great share.
Hope I'm wrong. So those are the charts I had to share today. Any other thoughts on the Mars retrograde, Mario?
No, that's other than just as a note for everyone, wherever Cancer is in your chart, your home issues are not quite done.
Yes, yeah.
Mars, Mars is going to come back. I know I've been dealing with hot water issues, lack thereof, and so semi-hot, but not like it was. And there's been all kinds of work on where I'm living, on and off with the retrogrades. And I'm just right at that point, right when it hit Cancer, I'm going to lose it, and I'm going to be like, oh, this needs to be completely fixed, and I can't deal with it anymore. I already feel it coming. How about you, Dorje?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, for sure. It's like, but I think that what you say there is exactly the answer, because that Mars, for on a personal level, that Mars retrograde means active, becoming proactive, putting energy into something and making something happen. So maybe for you, it's a move, maybe for people, it depends on where that falls within their house. But that Mars is like, this isn't an area where I can ignore. It's an area where I have to become proactive in my experience. Because that's what I always see Mars as, is where Mars is in the chart in any given point in time is an area you have to become proactive in making right for yourself.
Beautifully said. Thanks, man. Thanks for that. I'm sure everyone else appreciates that. Thank you so much today for listening. And as a reminder, you can reach Dorje at heartastrology.com and myself at plutonicplanes.com. Oh, I have my website up. I never mentioned this.
Sweet. Oh,
Yeah,
excellent. Congratulations. I'm going to
thanks.
go check it out.
Yeah, and that's it for us. Expect to hear and see our next video at the end of the month. We're going to do a huge whopping 6 hours, just kidding, maybe 2 hours on the
So we're
planet.
not going to do a Chris Brennan style, like a 6 hour video. Okay. We'll
I'm
try to
not
keep
even
it short and
commenting.
sweet, people. We'll try to
Uh,
keep it short and sweet.
all right. Thanks all, and
Okay.
take care.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much, and be well.